Good morning. Thank you for joining this month's RC West Oversight Committee meeting. This is Christina Osborne with the ISO. I'll be facilitating the web conference. Also from the ISO, there is Gina Wanzer, Janet Morris, Tim Beach from RC West, John Spomer, Eric Schmidt, and Jennifer Roth. And then we also have Michelle Cathcart on the phone. I'm not sure if Steve is joined. So this is the agenda for the public session. After Michelle does the roll call, we're going to have a discussion about the 2020 committee meeting schedule and frequency of those meetings. And then the members, we have a decisional item about the peak RC resolution. We are going to be electing an interim vice chair. Steve is retiring at the end of this year, so we're going to elect a new chair, vice chair. And then Joanna Lai will be here. She's going to provide an update on the November customer onboarding as well as the readiness criteria. Tim Beach will cover RC operations. He'll talk about how we communicate with the entities that have multiple control centers. He'll talk about the daily Northwest conference call and also provide an update on RC shadow ops. And then Khaled Abdul Rahman will be here to provide the technology update on the network modeling submission timeline as well as HANA implementation. And then we'll go over the future of the agenda items for the next meeting, and then we'll have time at the end for public comments. Just a note to the members, I know you have dialed into the speaker line. Your lines are open, so please just remember to mute your line if you're not planning to speak. And then also, we are recording the meeting today. We will make that recording available out on the Oversight Committee webpage, which is out on the ISO website. So with that, I will turn it over to Michelle for roll call.
All right, thanks, Christina. Let's start with Arizona Electric Power Co-op. All right, Avista. Avangrid.
Good morning, Michelle. Kit is on.
Thanks, Kit. APS. Balancing Authority of Northern California. And I know that Jim did send in an absentee vote. Bonneville Power, that's me. California ISO BA. Senate.
Hello, Michelle. Good morning. Gabriel Santillán with Senate.
Thanks, Gabriel. Chelan. Was that somebody for Chelan? All right, Douglas. Grant?
Yes, this is Leroy Patterson on that.
Thanks, Leroy. Grid Force. Hetchy.
Brian Paulings here for Hetchy.
Thanks, Brian. Idaho Power. IID.
Matt Fossworth, IID.
Thanks, Matt. LADWP. Los Alamos. MID. And I know that James did submit notes for MID also. Montana, Alberta, Tie Line. Natural. Northwestern.
Casey's here.
Thanks, Casey. NV Energy.
Chris Austin's here.
Thanks, Chris. Pacific Core.
Eric Brookhouse is here.
Thanks, Eric. PG&E. Portland General.
Corey McAllister's here.
Thanks, Corey. TNM. Puget.
Evan Searles here.
Thanks, Evan. SRP? Steve, are you there? I think you're muted. Southern California Edison.
Yes, Gary Carpenter here, Michelle.
Gary. San Diego Gas and Electric. Seattle City Lights. Silicon Valley. SMUD. Snohomish. Tacoma. Trans Bay Cable. Tri-State.
Good morning, Michelle. Keith, the Tri-State's here.
Thanks, Keith. TID.
Hi, Michelle. Casey Hashimoto.
Thanks, Casey. Valley Electric. And WAPA.
Rebecca Johnson.
Thanks, Rebecca. Did anybody else join since the roll call started?
Michelle, we're going to have Larry Belknap here on behalf of ISO.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else join? All right, it looks like we don't quite have a quorum. Let me just double check.
Michelle, I just had to hang up and call back in before I could get the mute off or whatever. So SRP's here, this is Steve Cobb.
All right, thanks, Steve. So it looks like we have 17 present out of 39 members. So not quite a quorum. So I think what we'll do is if others don't join before some of our voting items, then we'll send out for an email ballot for those that didn't, that weren't able to be here.
So Michelle, as far as the quorum goes, did we capture Banks' vote on that? I mean, as far as that helps us towards quorum.
You're right. So we did get 1, 2, 3, 4 additional email votes. So you're right. You're right. That would help us towards quorum. So then we should be fine. Okay. So then with that, we'll talk first about the upcoming committee meetings. So currently we have scheduled an in-person meeting on November 19th, a webinar on December 12th, and then we had talked about going quarterly once we get into 2020. And so as we're approaching the end of the year, we said that we would talk about that again. So I think the first conversation is whether there's still interest in having the November meeting be an in-person meeting, or whether that should just be a webinar, and then we can talk about the frequency in 2020. Are there thoughts about the November meeting? So I know that we have been having declining participation in person in some of our meetings. So I might suggest that we would consider making November into a webinar, unless folks have burning topics that you think we should be talking about in person.
That sounds perfect, Michelle.
Okay.
I support that as well, Michelle.
All right. So we'll go ahead and make that change. and then I suggested that at this point we still keep the December 17th webinar on the books as well, although we may want to talk about that in November if there's still value in that. Obviously, it's getting closer to the holidays at that point, but I think we'll want to see how the go live goes before we decide whether we need that or not. And then in terms of 2020, are we still supportive of going to quarterly meetings at that point?
Michelle, the membership always has the prerogative to request additional meetings if we need them, as long as we make the notice requirements. So I would support the quarterlies unless it's adjusted by a motion by the membership.
Okay. Other thoughts?
Michelle, this is Brian Pauling. I would support that as well, assuming that the go live goes well.
Okay.
Yeah, Michelle, it's Eric Brookhouse. I would support that as well.
Okay. So in terms of the timing of those meetings, I'm going to suggest that when we think about quarterly, that we might want to look at February, May, August, and November, so that we meet just prior to some of the changes in operating seasons, just before summer, just before winter, et cetera. Does that make sense to folks?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
All right. So I'll work with the ISO to get those scheduled then. Christine, is there any other information you need for that?
Will those be in person or webinars? What's your preference?
I would suggest that at least the May and November ones should be in person as we talk about the upcoming operating season. Maybe we start with February and August as webinars. Does that sound good to folks?
Does to me. Yep.
So I'll look for some date options and send them to you, Michelle.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so the next item is a peak reliability coordinator resolution. If you can bring that up, Christina. So I think that as we're moving towards the transition next week, one of the things that I talked a little bit with Steve and the ISO about was having a resolution to thank Peak Reliability for their work both over the last 10 years as well as through this transition. So we developed this resolution that I'm hoping the committee can support. I'll give you a minute to read through it. In case anyone's not on the webinar, I'll go ahead and read it as well, since I know it didn't get sent out. Whereas Peak Reliability and its predecessor, WEC, has faithfully acted as the highest level of authority responsible for the reliable operation of the bulk electric system in the Western Interconnection for more than 10 years. Whereas Peak Reliability has been an essential partner in the transition of reliability coordinator services to RC West. And whereas Peak Reliability has continuously demonstrated its commitment to reliability, resolved, the RC West Oversight Committee formally recognizes Peak Reliability and its staff for the professional and thorough support of the transition of RC services to RC West and the continued dedication to the reliability of the Western Interconnection. Thank you for assuring the wide area view. And that assuring the wide area view is Peak's tagline, so I wanted to throw that in there. Is there any thoughts or comments on the resolution?
SRP supports it.
Tri-State supports it.
Civic Corps supports it.
Puget supports.
Madison supports.
Yeah, Edison supports also, Michelle.
Let's do it this way. Is there anyone that doesn't support? All right, we'll consider this approved then, and we'll work to get this delivered to Peak to demonstrate our appreciation. Thank you.
Michelle, is there a point in time that we can present that to them at an upcoming meeting or something to that effect?
we'll see what we can get set up. I don't know if there's a good opportunity. They do have still on their books a November 12th board and member advisory committee meeting. So if that still stays on the books, then we can deliver it then.
Sounds good.
Okay. The next item is the election of a vice chair. And the one nomination I've received is for Christy Coco from APS. And before we talk about her specifically, I'd like to ask if there's anyone else that wanted to be nominated for the vice chair. All right. Hearing none, I'm going to ask if there's anyone that does not support Christy as the vice chair.
Michelle, it's Keith. Just a question there. The slide says interim, so is it just a temporary position, or is this going to be or is this just until Steve's term would have ended?
So at this point, it's until Steve's term would have ended. I think that what we had initially talked about when we set the terms was that Steve and I had both agreed to go through March of 2020. I know that at the last meeting we talked a little bit about a need for some transition, as well as, maybe wanting to stagger the terms of the chair and vice chair. So I know that part of the discussion will need to be how we want to achieve that. So what I'm going to suggest is that Christy, unfortunately, couldn't be here today. She was on vacation. So I think she and I will need to talk a little bit more about what we would like to do, and then we can talk at November's meeting about if there would be any changes to those term dates.
Okay, thanks for elaborating on that. And then, of course, we've changed from co-chair to chair and vice chair, right?
I have to check and remember what the charter actually says. There was not an intentional change.
Okay, I was just reading the slide there and made a bad assumption then, perhaps.
Yeah, there was no intentional change, but we'll make sure that the terminology matches the charter.
Okay. Yeah, we did have discussion about making that change for succession purposes.
Right. Are there any other questions or comments?
So this, I guess, is Keith. I guess if we need to formalize this, I'd like to make a motion that we accept Christy Coco as the interim vice chair to make it official.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Is there somebody that would want to second that?
Brian Pauling seconds.
Okay. And then I'll just ask again, is there anyone opposed to that nomination? All right, so we'll consider that passed then. All right. So the next topic is customer onboarding with Join-a-Lie.
All right, good morning, everybody. Let's move on. Well, I'm not going to go through this for everybody. You can see we're really close, and just move on to the next one. And again, I included all the items that we've been working on, and we're wrapping up our shadow operations. As you can see, the executive statements are all 100% complete on time. Thank you, everyone, for that. And we're continuing our shadow operations in the production environment, and that's what we'll talk about a little bit if we go to the next slide. So, upcoming dates that we're still working on. So you see a lot of things have been completed as we're moving along. The Western data sharing pool is still expected to be available on the 25th. That's Friday. And then on the week of the 28th, we'll actually close the stage environment. And that, although it's, at this point it's probably not as critical because we've been validating all the data coming into production at this point. So I think we're at about 95% of all the data coming in as required into production environment, which is great. The plan was that we get everyone in now, and we're validating that data in the process right now. And then once we roll on to 11.1, it should be no real change other than we start submitting the actual production level report. So it should be a pretty easy transition, assuming all the data is validated. And at this point, it's going quite well. So by the end of the month, again, we'll just wrap up the peak services, and then on 11.1, rolling into RC West as the RC of record. For those who are interested, the next network model update is scheduled for the 21st of November. Just to keep that in mind, that I know that some folks are looking forward to model changes. Okay.
Joanne, this is Brookhouse of Pacific Corp. Can you confirm that? I know we got an email asking if we could move that network model update to December. If there would be any issues.
Okay, we'll let you know. I understand that is being discussed, and we'll keep you posted on that, Eric. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So everyone has been submitting data into production. I think we've got like maybe 4 or 5 things that I'm following up on of these different items, but for the most part, it's looking quite well. So what I've been following up on is those who may be missing whole chunks of data. What you may start seeing is some of our OEs reaching out to customers where there might be some data validation types of thing, very specific information about the data that doesn't quite look right. So you might see some of that coming your way. But overall, it's looking quite well, so thank you very much. The PLC, just so you know, the path limit calculator has not yet gone to production. That will be there, I believe, on Friday. That's what we're currently targeting, so keep that in mind. Only a handful of you need to submit path limits, so just keep that in mind. And also the GMS, I've been tracking to see that everybody has actually has access and is submitting a test message. Again, I think there are a few outstanding items. There are a couple customers that maybe have not submitted their test message, so if you haven't done that, please do so. We want to make sure that everyone has access to GMS starting on 11.1 and it's working properly for you. Okay. Readiness criteria. There are a total of 27 readiness criteria out there. 24 of the 27 are already complete. The handful that are still outstanding have to do with the completion of shadow operations and the data exchange validation. So looking really good there as well. We do have one that's in caution, that's the WIT and ECC, but those agreements, the agreement there, we're waiting on the agreement there. The agreement is being finalized now. So I think we're overall in really good shape with the readiness criteria. I think that might be it. Okay. Any questions on the onboarding? All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks. All right, so now we're on to the operations update with Tim.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. A couple of items we'll talk about this morning. First is we had some requests from entities, 2 entities specifically, to accommodate sending separate GMS messages or having separate addresses for their individual control centers. Fortunately, we were able to accommodate that. A couple of things about that. They have specific addresses, but also it's incumbent on those control centers that they acknowledge their messages individually as well. So that was a request that came during shadow operations, and we were able to accommodate that pretty quickly. Companion to that was the blast call functionality. The same entities wanted to have separate blast calls go to those control centers so they could take part individually and not have to follow quickly up with their satellite control center to inform them of the discussion on the blast call. So that's happened. We've tested it again, and I believe we'll be doing some more testing just prior to go live again as well. Same with the GMS, as Joanne mentioned during the onboarding. There are still some that we have to make sure that they can acknowledge the messages and that type of thing. So that's going good. The daily conference call. So October 1st, we started a Northwest conference call, which is similar to the Southwest conference call we've been holding for the southern area of the RC West footprint. During this conference call, it's held at 0300. So what we do is we wait for the nightly outage review to take place, and then any changes that are discovered or identified during the outage review, we bring up during that 0300 call to inform everybody. Some other items we talk about are the IRL path limits, stability limits. We talk about major transmission items, or outages, generation and RAS outages, and the potential impacts it could have across the region. We talk about any facility limit changes that are occurring due to a specific outage. We talk about forecasted weather, and also, again, we talk about the nightly outage review. So we have had quite a bit of discussion on this item. A lot of the entities, this is new for them, and it's a new activity that are taking place every night, so there has been a little discussion about the how advantageous it is for everybody to take part in it. So I've requested that the entities continue through the transition and through 2019, and then at 2020, once we're firmly established and operating, we'll revisit the format of the call and decide if there's any process improvements we can make to it. Other entities are very supportive of the call. They find it very beneficial to have the call. They understand the larger impacts of what might be going on in the system and the impacts that may or may not impact their local areas. So that's going on. And then the next slide. On shadow operations. So our shadow operations, we've been doing quite a bit of work. The RCs have been reporting the communications have been going very well between the BAs and TOPs and RC West and Peak. A lot of cooperation, so we don't see any deficiency there. We're very happy about that. Spot check-wise, we've been going through, we've checked all our SCADA limits, so that's all been trued up. We did find a few errors with planning mapping or the model mapping, but those have been corrected and verified. We had a number of man wraps in the system that we were concerned about, so we've gone through and checked all those to make sure that they're reflective of the actual topology of the system. And then also we've been completing a lot of data checks, so spot checks. So before we cut over to the new EMS, we went through our spot check sheet and verified some data issues. After the cutover to the new EMS, we went back again, and a number of those were cleared up. However, there was a number of residual items that we're working on. Some of those were related to calculations for path limits and interties, flow measurements, IRL cut planes, and some gen units, and that type of thing. So, we're actually in the mopping up part of that now. We're almost to the point where we consider it ongoing data maintenance as far as data validation and data mapping and database loads and all that type of thing and checkout. So a lot of progress there. And lastly, we've gone through and checked all our inter-area communication. So we've called all your control centers, your primary, your backup phone numbers, your plain old telephone lines or POTS lines if you have them, and your satellite communications to make sure that we have the correct phone numbers in place for those, as well as the GMS and the blast office functionality too. So we've gone through and done a lot of that. That's all completed with a couple, like I mentioned earlier, a couple of GMS items that we have outstanding, but those will be taken care of soon. Also new to the Northwest has been the nightly outage review. So we've changed our process from what Peak had done, where they had called each TOP and BA and gone over line item by line item verbally over the phone. We have a little different process that works a little bit better. We felt it was a little bit of a burden on the operators and RCs. They spent a lot of time checking outages, and it was taken away from monitoring the reliability of the system. So we did implement a new process where we actually generate the scheduled outages list. We post those. We ask the TOPs to review them, acknowledge they're correct, or to call us and contact us verbally with any changes. Again, the only changes that are discovered are shared at 0300. And then lastly, we've been working on RTCA, our tuning process. So our results have been, we're incrementally improving those. and we've been looking at a lot of things. So, of course, some of the feeds and those are having the correct limit in there, so the RTCA measures against the correct limit, having the man wraps correct so the state estimator picks up the correct topology, having the data flows in there correctly, and then also I have Ankit and the Hollett here. They've been working on the weighting of the phase shifters and the load distribution and that type of thing. So we've seen quite a bit of improvement over the last week in our results. So we talk to the RCs every day on the floor and make sure that we're seeing the improvements we expect. So with that, okay. Oh, okay, yeah, so we had our certification. I thought you were going to it, so, okay, all right. So certification, we had to have a readiness review with WEC and NERC. They were here last week. That went through very well. We checked off all the items that were on our bucket 2 list, and they actually interviewed the RC operators and spent some time on the floor again, talking to them, making sure that they were comfortable. We took a review of our tools, and they were comfortable with that, and then we'll be issuing our certification letter within the next, right?
Yeah, this is Nancy. We got the draft letter. I think we returned it, or we will today. Didn't have really any comments on it, and so we would expect that we'll get the final letter hopefully by the end of the week, but for sure next week. NERC assured us that they're ready to turn it around as soon as we review the letter. So we're there.
So quite a bit of information there. Any questions on those items?
All right, thanks, Tim. Next up, then, we have an update on technology with Khaled.
Good morning, everyone. This is Khaled Abdurrahman and technology. So we wanted to give you a quick update on three probably items here that of interest. The one is what are we doing with the timeline related to the network model submission and the building of the network model. So we are currently in the process of, after we moved from the old EMS to the new EMS, we have now the tools that is necessary for us to be able to support the network building of the network model on a more frequent basis. And our target, of course, is the monthly basis. So the alignment or the streamlining of this process is in progress right now using the what we call the Enterprise Model Management System, which is a tool that is now fully utilized. The whole building of the network model is done in that tool, which is a change from the old style that we were doing it outside, and then we import it into this tool. So this is now more of a streamlined process. And then the DB93, which is the current model that we are working towards meeting the November 21st timeline. This is the first model that we will be building using this new tool, fully inside the tool without the need to go to the legacy, processes that we used to do in the old paradigm. Now, this we are also using this as a way for us to time the tasks that are needed in the different stages of the building of the network model, from the time that we receive the model till the time that it is ready for building it. And the building of the model involves not only the mapping of the ICCP and the network model itself, there are different types. Like there is people who are submitting SIM, there are people who are submitting non-SIM. There are different tasks involved in each one of these that we are actually trying now to time it and see how fast we can turn around every task. And if we need to increase even resources in each of those tasks, this is giving us actually the opportunity to time it accurately before we start giving this timeline. That's why we didn't reveal yet the timeline, but we will be doing that very soon. So this network model DB93 is the one that will give us that information. Now, there is also quite a bit of other work that is being done right now because, as you all know, we moved from the old DMS to the new EMS. There is a lot of data conversion that happened. So we are also in the process of checking that. And like Tim mentioned, we are in the process of making sure first, priority for us is that all the RC related information is actually there and displayed and in terms of ICCPs that are needed or even calculated points that are needed. We are giving that as our highest priority, and majority of the data is there. We are finding maybe some few every day we are trying to work with operation to see what else is needed, and we are responding right away to those issues. Next is I wanted to give an update on the Western data sharing pool. That most of the ISO has established actually the ITSP links with all of the RC customers, and the RC to RC communication is also there, and also the NERC situation awareness. 2 links are also established there. All of that kind of infrastructure work is done. Is complete. The incoming ICCP data is all done, is complete. The outgoing, we are in progress. We are using the peaks readers list, and we are going through making sure that we are finishing all of the outgoing ICCP data that needs to go to the different. And we are working through that one. There was probably some of the highlights is related to an effort that we are doing with PPA. PPA requested about 20,858 points from us, and we made available so far about 20,607. We sent it to PEAK. There's about 251 unmatched points that we didn't find it in our side. We're working with and most of those are actually in the SPP area. So we're working with SPP to see what is equivalent or what points that we could map from our side and then send it to PEAK. SPP link also ISO is sending about 705 points. Like 2 days, I think, ago, request from SPP for an additional 35,000 points, and also to remove 24,000 from the existing list. And we are thinking that this will be complete by next week. In terms of the Alberta, the request is 780. We're working with them. This will be done hopefully by end of this week, maybe Thursday actually. It seems that it looks like it may be Thursday or at least the end of this week. NERC, there is about, we are already sending to NERC about 134 BEA level points, on the sum on the total BEA. NERC is requesting also points on a unit basis, about 7,000. We will also work with, work on this, and by end of this week or maybe beginning of next week, most likely end of this week. And the last update I wanted to, give about the HANA, the alarms. Basically, it's one of the topics that has been of interest recently. So the HANA base and the HANA study links are all available, as you all know. The people can log in. We check that connectivity as well as the functionality is there. It's available for the RC customers. The application availability alarm, like we talked about, if the RTCA is not working or there is an issue that it is not solving, we wanted to send an ICCP point to the RC customers to tell them that there is a problem. So this is a binary point that it is either 0 means everything is fine, 1 means that there is a problem. We are in the process of building that. We have already, the queries that will enable us to put the information in the PI system and then take it from the PI into our EMS and then send it through the ICCP link to the RC customer. This will be actually available very soon, probably by the end of this week. The other thing is like if there is different types of maybe if the application is not available because we are in the middle of some maintenance, although we're trying, to make sure that when we are patching the system that we have the different sites available for us. But in case there is some, we will be sending, even if that is not an impact to the operation, we will be sending messages to make sure that the RC customers are aware of the activities that is happening. Like if we are patching the system, we will let you know that, even though it may not impact operation. There are also two types of alarms that we were asked to make available. One is the thermal violation, like if a particular COP, not only on the BA level, on the COP level, if there is a violation, a thermal violation or voltage violation that appears in the real-time in RTCA, we were asked to send an alarm or to make sure that the particular COP is getting a signal, an ICCP point that says there is violation, important violation that is being in your area, so this will alert at least the COP operators to take a look into the HANA and find out those violations. Those also are being built right now, and they are in progress. We will make them available hopefully within this week or next week. By end of next week, hopefully we will have those also available. So this alarming, is going actually very fast. We're taking it as a high priority for us. We assume that this is also important for you, and this is the message that we are giving to our people. So we're working on this at full speed on that. With this, I'll stop here to see if there is any question so far. Okay.
Will there be a message that goes out to the utilities to let us know when those alarms are finalized? How will we know that they're in place? So
once we tested it and it's functional, we will be working with some of the customers to test it to make sure that the ICCP, the communication is through ICCP. So once we establish the ICCP data point and we start seeing it that it is active, it is live, that is the indication. But we will be sending like maybe a general message that says we are done with this task for the whole community. But for the people who are involved, we will be working one-on-one to make sure that they are actually seeing that particular point that belongs to them.
Great, thank you.
The last comment I wanted to say, because before I joined the bridge, I know that there was a discussion about the time for the deployment of the network model on November 21st. The reason why you're hearing that it may be delayed, it's because of what I explained, that this is the first network model that we are totally, completely doing it from the new tools, and we are measuring exactly the time. We are hoping that we can meet the November 21st, but there is a question mark. So we're trying to caution that it may be actually delayed if we run into a situation that we did not anticipate before, because this is the first time, as well as we're giving also priority to the RC needs and making sure that all of the ICCP displays, any issue related to the November 1st operation is taking a higher priority. We're hoping that we will meet again the November 21st as far as what we can see right now. But if we run into any issue, we will let you know right away that if a delay is in the network model.
Khaled, if you end up with a delay, are you thinking that'll be a matter of a few days, or are you thinking that it would actually get pushed further into December?
It will be because we are very close to the the holidays around the Thanksgiving and all of that. So it may be pushed to December 12th. So either November 21st or December 12th right now. We are still targeting internally here, we're targeting the November 21st, and unless we hit something that we did not anticipate. But as soon as we know, we will let you know right away. We will not wait till the last moment. All right. Is there any other question?
Yeah, I have a question on the ICCP points from Hannah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I was wondering if we could at least get the tags. I understand the points may not be implemented or have valid data until the dates you mentioned, but if we could get just the tag description so we can get those set up in our system, that would be most helpful.
Absolutely. I think this is very reasonable. Yeah, and I thought maybe our EMS people are going to be contacting each TOP with information, allow them to set up the tag.
Okay. Well, so far we haven't got any commitment, so I'm glad to hear you say that. And this is Leroy Patterson from Grant, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Leroy. This is Ankit from the EMS team. The setup of the tags is ongoing, and you're correct. The tag information will be available before the actual data starts streaming. We anticipate that you will have a communication from us on the tag, the actual ICCP tag, by the end of this week. On Friday, you should have that communication from us.
All right.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Khaled. So the next topic then is future agenda items. Are there any agenda items that folks want to discuss on the November webinar? I already do have that we will talk about the terms for the chair and vice chair, and we did confirm that the charter talks about vice chair, so we will continue to use that terminology. Are there any other topics? Obviously, we'll have an update on the Go Live and all of the normal updates that we have. All right. If there are no other topics, then we'll move to public comment. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment?
So if you do have a question or a comment, you can raise your hand by pressing #2. Lauren, let me know if anybody enters the queue, please.
At this time, there's nobody in the queue.
All right. So just as a quick review of the action items that I took down from this meeting, first is that we will change our November 19th meeting to just be a webinar. We will get quarterly meetings scheduled for next year with in-person meetings in May and November and webinars in February and August. Let's see here. We will, I'll work with Peak to coordinate providing them the resolution that we approved today and reading it hopefully at their November board meeting. And then Khaled will, or the EMS team will provide the ICCP tag information for the Alarms in the Canada service. Any other action items that I missed?
Michelle, Keith, just a curiosity question. So we're changing the meeting in November to webinar. Are we going to change the time to be like it was today from a 9 a.m. to 11, just for my planning purposes?
I'm okay either way. Is there a preference from the committee?
I personally like the morning meeting like we're doing today for webinars. In person, I understand the later start time, though.
Is there anybody opposed?
Morning.
Morning?
That sounds good. Morning sounds good.
Morning works.
All right, we'll get it switched then to be 9 to 11 on November 19th.
Michelle, this is Gary. I'm going to have to miss the executive committee meeting today, unfortunately. Something just came up. I have not voted on the hybrid versus the NEL stuff. But if you need my vote, it can go with whatever way the CAISO goes, okay?
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So with that, then we will end the public session and move into the executive session.
Great. Yeah, so members, go ahead and stay on the phone line. I did provide a separate link to log into, so please use that link. I sent an email this morning. And also, Lauren, you can go ahead and stop recording.